James drove his RAV4 hybrid into the frozen wilderness. The scent of his jerky attracted a hungry wolf pack behind him. To survive, he had to remain fearless. He would hunt with them and expand their territory. He'd form a bond with a wolf named Acalia, become den mother, and nurse their young. James left in search of his next adventure.
How far will you take the all-new RAV4 hybrid? Toyota, let's go places.
Hey, welcome to SI Now. It is Friday, May 12th, and I'm Maggie Gray. To everyone watching on Facebook Live, hello. Thank you for tuning in. You won't regret it. Coming up, in honor of Mother's Day this Sunday, we'll look at the relationship between the NBA's potential top draft pick and his mom. Aw. Plus, comedian Mark Norman has a new special that airs tonight. He's going to give us some new sports that he'd like to see in the future, and it is hilarious. But we begin in Houston, where the rocket ship never got off the ground in Game 6. James Harden's potential MVP season ends in a flameout at home, losing by 39 points. Our NBA analyst Jordan Schultz is here. All right, Jordan, James Harden, just a shell of himself in an elimination game at home, finished the night 2 for 11, 6 turnovers in this game. Do you question whether Harden quit?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Maggie, there is you got to really look seriously at Game 5 and wonder if maybe at some point he was concussed. I speculated on it. An NBA executive texted me last night saying he thought that was the only explanation because Harden looked disinterested. And it's one thing for Houston and Harden to miss shots. He goes 2 for 11. It's another thing to have no effort, not defend, not get the 50-50 balls. And that was really the story of Houston last night, not just James Harden.
And not driving to the hoop when they couldn't get those three-pointers to fall. Wow, that's interesting. We'll wait to see if there was actually a medical reason for Harden's poor performance. We know that he was battling a cold for several weeks. Obviously, that left wrist injury was from even earlier in the season. If Harden ends up winning the MVP award, does this take some of the shine off of that?
For me, it does. Yeah, it really does. And I think when you think about what he did this season, basically averaging a triple-double, not quite, but the unbelievable season he had, to go into the playoffs and play against Oklahoma City the way he did really well, and then go up against San Antonio, like the demon of the West for Houston. Obviously, Mike D'Antoni, 6-20 all-time against him in the playoffs. Against Pop, the worst ever of an NBA coach in the playoffs. Harden was nowhere to be found. He had 9 turnovers in Game 5. And this is something that Rocket fans are used to, whether it's turnovers for James Harden, the high usage, but they're also used to him making the plays late in games and finding a way. That did not happen, obviously, against San Antonio. So for me, even though the regular season is totally separate with the MVP, this does taint his MVP a little bit.
What about legacy? Is it too much to go there and say that Harden's reputation and now legacy is in some way altered by this game?
We're starting to get into the Tracy McGrady territory, another former Houston Rocket, all-time scorer, and yet a guy that never really had any success in the playoffs until the end of his career. I think with James Harden, he's still young enough where he can change that. He's in the prime of his career, but you also look at Russell Westbrook, the same type of thing where they haven't been able to win a championship. Harden, I thought, had plenty of help, and obviously losing Nene hurt in this series. But when it comes down to it, as a legitimate top 5, top 7 NBA player at worst, you got to be better than this, Maggie. It's just not good enough.
Interesting, Tracy McGrady going into the Hall of Fame, although known for all of those postseason misses and coming up short of expectations. You mentioned the record, Mike D'Antoni against Greg Popovich. In some way, is this an indictment on D'Antoni's system? Yeah,
I mean, this is the same thing as the Phoenix Suns, mid-2000s. It's just, Mike D'Antoni's a really good coach, and you win 60 games, that's a great feat, right? That's kind of what George Karl did in his Seattle years. You win these 60 games, you have these 1, 2, or 3rd seed in the playoffs, and then you get in the playoffs, and it's not good enough because you don't defend. Houston, at its best, is a middle-of-the-pack defensive team. San Antonio, as we've discussed at length, Maggie, first in the league in overall defensive efficiency. And Mike D'Antoni is a guy that's going to say, we're going to take 30 threes a game, and they're also taking deeper threes than anybody else, twice as much as anybody else, and they're not going to guard anybody. And so at some point, you got to wonder if this, and we've talked about this, is this Mike D'Antoni's system? And I believe it is. And also, sorry to keep going on about this, but I just got to get this off my chest.
Yeah.
With Mike D'Antoni, 6-20 all time against Greg Popovich in the playoffs, that's one thing. But to go as small as he did and basically say, James Harden, you're going to guard LaMarcus Aldridge and Pau Gasol, we're going to play 7 guys, that's not good enough either. So I question a lot if I'm a Houston Rocket fan.
Absolutely, especially with no Kawhi Leonard. He is the Spurs' only all-star. I mean, there was the DeJounte Murrays were out there looking like all-star caliber players, and that's really a credit to Popovich, I think.
I agree.
This is interesting. Also, who shaves the mustache in the middle of a playoff run? I mean, that's tempting fate right there. Yeah. This is not good for Houston.
And I agree with you about Kawhi. I mean, that we haven't even talked about it. Yeah. One of the best players in the NBA, not even on the floor in Game 6, on your own home floor. It's like I said, it's one thing to miss shots, But to not run good stuff, to not defend, and to not get 50-50 balls, and to be lackadaisical is crazy.
Okay, let's talk about this moving forward now. We have the matchup. It's going to be Golden State and San Antonio. Game 1 is on Sunday. If Kawhi Leonard is not 100%, can the Spurs pull this off? No,
I think, with Kawhi, he's the only legitimate guy in San Antonio that can create problems on both ends of the floor. LaMarcus can give you some offense. He's been inconsistent. Danny Green can hit a couple threes, and he can guard. But Kawhi Leonard is really the centerpiece of this team. They run everything through him. If he's not 100% or close to it, Golden State just has too many horses. Durant, Green, Curry, the bench, the depth. I just think with with San Antonio, they just don't have the bodies and the athleticism. So Kawhi has to be 100% or very close to it.
They do have the coach, though.
Yeah.
How much could Greg Popovich be a factor now facing not Steve Kerr, but Mike Brown, a former Popovich protege?
So he knows him really well. Mike Brown is under that Greg Popovich coaching tree. A lot of guys have had success. Mike Brown, obviously, intern for Kerr. That could play into it. I think the only thing that I would say about that is that for Brown's favor is that he's talking to Kerr every day. And he's made it very clear, Maggie, that every morning he's on the phone with Kerr, an hour, 2 hours, going over matchups, going over film. That, to me, is a big difference. But I do think Popovich can steal a game, maybe, without Leonard being 100%. They can't contend without him.
Okay, so you're saying this series is over in 5?
Assuming Kawhi is not close to 100%, yes.
Okay. Let's turn to tonight's matchup, Celtics and Wizards.
It's been
chippy. It's been okay. It's given us probably our best game of the playoffs so far. But this is not a good stat if you are Washington. Home teams 0-10 have yet to stave off elimination in this postseason. Can the Wizards reverse this trend and force a Game 7?
I think they will. And, I picked Washington this series.
You're in.
I'm on the hook.
You're on.
And I get the sense that Washington, if I'm a Washington fan, I'm hoping that Game 6 or Game 5 you throw out the window, because there's nothing you can learn from that. They just got outcompeted, and you can't let Avery Bradley go for 35 plus. So just move on. But here's my deal with Washington. The same issue that has plagued Washington all year is now hurting them against Boston. They don't have depth.
Right.
And when you don't have depth in the playoffs, you see it. Houston again, another example. Oklahoma City. When you play against good teams who have enough bodies, it starts to wear you down. I thought Washington looked tired in Game 5. But the biggest thing for me when it really comes down to it is how the guard is going to be. Because Washington can't win this series. They can't be Cleveland for that matter if Beal and Wall aren't great. Neither one was particularly good in Game 5. That's why they got blown out ultimately. They both have to be excellent, and I think they will be on their home floor.
Okay, yeah, you don't want to be gassed at this point in the playoffs because the winner of this series, ta-da,
against
you get Cleveland.
Arrested Cleveland
Yeah,
team.
Who's been basically in the sauna and probably in the hot tub for the last couple days. Jordan Schultz,
Thank you,
really
Maggie.
appreciate it. Have a good weekend. The presumptive #1 pick in the NBA draft, Markelle Fultz, has a special relationship with his mother, Ebony. And of course, Mother's Day is Sunday. So here's a look at what makes Ebony and Markelle so close.
This is Markelle right here. This was him in the All-Star game. He said, I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do that. This is Markelle as the baby. It's my little baby. We play a lot. Me and him, we'll wrestle. Who wins?
I mean, y'all see my boxing today and all that. I've been working on my jab.
Who wins? That's
But, like,
now. Who's won in
but,
the
like,
future? I mean, in the past.
But I ain't gonna lie, like I start out winning, but see, I got a lot of hair, so let me tell y'all the details about my hair. It's get tugged and pulled a lot, so
That's
I mean,
the
at
spot.
the end of the day, she ends up coming out with the victory. But I'll be having my like 10 seconds, 20 second spurts.
I have to figure out something else I'm gonna do if he cuts his hair off.
Yeah.
I mean, he probably doesn't pull your hair.
No, he doesn't. He's respectful. Markelle just came home Sunday.
I gotta wash clothes,
Okay, what you telling me for?
cause you gotta stay up with me.
So to have him home and just laugh and joke before it gets hectic is awesome.
When I come home, I'm always happy because I know she's excited to see me though. And it's two types of faces I get. It's the one face that she's happy, and it's the other face that I got something to clean up or something to do.
He's right. He's very right. When he was getting ready to come home, I told him, oh, good. We did the countdown, 4 days, 3 days, 2 days, and I was like, it's a list on the dining room table of stuff you need to do when you get home. So I've always been a mom that each of my kids have things they're responsible for around the house. Today's trash day because he's just coming back home, and he's like, well, I just took 3 bags of trash out, and I'm like, it's more trash in here, so today's trash day. And he was getting ready to say something, and he was just like, oh, okay. Okay, Mom.
Put that trash in the hallway. How about that?
And you gotta get
Put the trash in the hallway.
Listen, Linda.
I'm putting it out tonight. Everything I do is just to impress her and protect her brand because I'm a part of her brand, and I don't want to mess that up. I don't want people thinking she's a bad mother because something stupid I did, so I just always be careful.
I always say he was born at the wrong time. He should have been born in his 70s because he was the kid that got up early in the morning and went outside and literally stayed outside all day. I remember him always wanting to play basketball. So that was his girlfriend. He never puts her down. I think whatever he sets his mind to, he'll accomplish because that's the person he is. But regardless if he's an all-star or not, I'm still going to be Mom, and I'm still going to be there with him.
My first happiest moment is going to be the draft. I mean, just knowing I'm going to be able to take care of my mom and my sister, which is something I wanted to do all my life.
You've been talking about me?
No, nobody like you. To make her happy means the world to me. I mean, eventually basketball's going to stop, and I'm still going to want to make her happy. So, I mean, as long as she's smiling, I'm going to keep doing whatever I'm doing to make her smile. So that's big with me.
Of course, Markelle Fultz is attending the NBA Draft Combine, but if he had asked Kevin Durant on whether he should have, Durant would have told him to just stay home. Durant shared an embarrassing memory from his Draft Combine experience, saying that strength coaches laughed at the future MVP for not being able to bench press 185 pounds. Durant told ESPN earlier this week, if you're a top 10 pick or a first-round pick or whatever and you know you might be guaranteed, stay your bleep at home. Work out and get better on your own time. Jeremy Wu is covering the Draft Combine for SI.com. We head there being Chicago, courtesy of Toyota. Let's go places. Okay, Jeremy, what has been the response to Durant's comments from the NBA folks at the Combine?
Yeah, I think that, Kevin's not alone in that, someone says something like this every year, I feel like. And to an extent, I think most people who, sort of understand the landscape will agree with him to some degree because these guys come in, we know how good they are. Everybody, all the scouts and executives, sitting in the gym, they know how good, Markelle Fultz is. These are guys who aren't mysteries. So, on the flip side, I do think that it actually is nice because when these guys do drop out, you see, you get to see more guys who might not necessarily have that type of exposure, during the season, or just guys who people may not have laid eyes on. And for me, I saw a lot of people who I hadn't seen in person before. So, that's the flip side of it. As far as the getting better part, I don't know. I can't speak to that. That's a to each his own type thing. But Durant's not. It sounds crazier than it is, but he has a point, and I think that it's something that is not all that out there.
Okay, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it does open up a spot for someone who really needs to impress the scouts in order to leave an impression. Okay, prospects, they're going to take part in scrimmages, and some have already begun to separate themselves from the rest of the pack. Which guys have stood out to you so far?
Yeah, yesterday in scrimmages, there were a few guys who, played really well. It was actually a lot of guys from the Pac-12 for whatever reason. So there were 3 guys that I thought played really well. Derek White from Colorado, who is a guy with a great story, second-round type player. He was, D2 All-American, ended up transferring to Colorado. He had a really late growth spurt, and now he's looking like one of the better guards in the draft. So he's a guy who I think is going to get drafted. Another guy who I really love is Raleigh Alkins from Arizona, who has also been a guy with an interesting story. Coming out of New York City, made a bunch of different stops. In high school, had to transfer. He had a tough time with the rules, the Catholic School Association in New York, and ended up at Arizona. Played a big role for their team this year. And he has a tough choice because for him, he can still go back to school. If he goes back, he's going to be part of a team that has a chance to win a title. And if he goes pro, I mean, there's teams that have interest in him in the late first round. And then Jordan Bell from Oregon is another guy who I think people have kind of pegged as a sleeper. Really good defensive player. He measured pretty well. He's not, he's only like 6'7", so he's not as big as you would like for a guy who plays his role. But he had a really good showing. He had like 5 blocks, 5 assists, 6 rebounds, 12 points. Like that's pretty good showing at the combine in a game. He's very active, so I think he impressed some people with his energy. So those are 3 of the guys that stood out yesterday.
Okay, on the other end, who needs to do more throughout the weekend to impress these scouts?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there were a lot of guys who didn't have great games yesterday. It's hard to single out just one. And I think the key thing to understand with the process is just like, for these guys, it's not necessarily they have to have a great game. On the contrary, there are actually some guys, scouts have seen these guys, they've done their homework. The thing about the combine, sometimes it's the first time that a GM has seen a kid in person because, the GMs are busier during the season. But they've done their homework. There are guys, there are scouts who will root for their guys to have a bad day. Like guys they love because they don't want them, other teams to catch on. So for example, there was a guy like, Peter Jock from Iowa who didn't shoot great yesterday, and he's a shooting specialist, right? But I'm sure there are a few guys in the gym who love him and are happy that he didn't make any shots because, they want to, keep his stock quiet. So, I think sometimes people overblow like the performance aspect of the combine. I think the key, I guess, if you had to pick some guys who are, key to watch, it's the guys who can still go back to school. And who are making their choices. Those are the key guys to focus on today.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah, the little mind games going on that the scouts don't really want their guys to do well because then other scouts won't get too involved. We know the combine is a place where prospects get asked just absolutely ridiculous questions by NBA teams. Of course, Frank Mason asked how he would want to die. That's a little morbid. Justin Patton was asked if he speeds up or slows down when approaching a yellow light. What is the weirdest question that you've heard about, Jeremy?
Yeah, so it's actually the one I always think about is last year's combine. Marquise Chris said a team asked him, I think if a ball and a bat cost $1.10, and the bat is $1 more than the ball, how much does the ball cost? And it's one of those things I have no idea. You think you have no idea. I don't know. Things like that.
I hope that there's some type of psychology behind this stuff that really determines whether or not someone will pan out for your team, or else it's just a massive waste of time. Jeremy, this has not been a massive waste of time. This has been great. Thank you so much for joining us from Chicago.
Thanks, Maggie.
All right. Of course, the NBA isn't the only thing happening this weekend. Check this out. It's time for SI Now's Weekend Drive, presented by Toyota. Let's go places. Our first stop takes us to Ponte Verde Beach in Florida for the Players' Championship. 48 of the 50 top golfers are competing, including Jordan Spieth, who shot 1 over in round 1.
Something happened that I've got to try and figure out now this afternoon on the range in my swing, and hopefully it's something small. But I've had tremendous control of the ball this entire week, and off the tee down to the putter. So the game, I thought going into this round, I felt as good as I felt this entire year. So you could throw a fluke round out, every now and then in a span of 4 rounds, you're likely to have a day where you're a little off a day or two. And I'll just hope that was the one today and that we're back on track.
We'll see if Jordan can go lower in round 2. Spieth missed the cut at Sawgrass a year ago. Next, we'll travel to Pittsburgh for the Stanley Cup playoffs. The Senators and Penguins face off in the Eastern Conference Finals. Sidney Crosby battled through a concussion, but is ready to take on Ottawa's stout defense.
They've got some depth. They're very confident in their game right now. They're pretty stingy defensively, and their goaltender's been playing really well. So, it's kind of, when you look at the teams that get to this point, a lot of the, similar things get you to this point, and they believe in their group and the way they play, and it'll be a good test for us.
Ottawa defeated the Pens in the regular season series 2-1. Lastly, we head to the nation's capital for the NBA playoffs. Boston and Washington have had a chippy series up until this point, with neither team winning a road game in this series. Here's Celtics point guard Isaiah Thomas.
We know what's at stake. We know it's going to be a hostile environment. We know it's going to be tough to get a win out there. But if we lock in like we did tonight, limit our turnovers, limit their transition, that gives us the best chance of winning that game. And we did a hell of a job tonight. From the first guy to the last guy, Coach made great adjustments, and we took what was off the whiteboard and put it in on the court.
The Celtics may have the edge in this one. Here's some history. Since 1997, the Wizards have been eliminated from the playoffs 7 times by losing on their home floor. And that's what's in store for this weekend. It's one of the greatest phrases a sports fan can utter. I was there. No matter how comfortable your couch may be, nor how many screens you have working at once, there is nothing that compares to witnessing a sporting event live and in person. Rob Flater and Steve Hoffman are making it easier for you to pinpoint what every sports fan should experience. It's in their new book. It's called The Sports Bucket List, 101 sights every fan has to see before the clock runs out. Rob, how did you set about creating this list?
Well, I wish I could say it was highly systematic, but we went through, created a bunch of sub-lists of things that I had been to and knew were great, my favorite things, and then things I always wanted to go to. And we wanted it to be really broadly diverse, geographically, in terms of what sports we covered. So we were going for lots of different things and trying to get the best of everything.
Yeah, there truly is something for everyone here. Now, Steve, should we assume that between you and Rob, you've been to every one of these events?
No, I think I've been to about 15 of them. One of the ways I look at the book also is a potential travel book. I mean, if you want to go see like elephant polo in Nepal, that's a great reason to go, or whatever it is.
Okay, let's talk about some of the more obscure trips here. This is a lot of effort and a lot of time if you want to say make it to base camp of Everest, which is something that's in the book. So Rob, what's worth it for the sports fan out there if they have one shot to do something very unique? What would you recommend?
Well, I mean, take Everest, for instance. I've never climbed Everest, never even been to the base camp. But I've always been dazzled by the film and the pictures I've seen of it and the stories about it, Into Thin Air. I mean, it was just it's one of those things out there. And so I thought that should be on the list. And if you're heading for that general neck of the woods, if you're going to Nepal to see Everest up close, then you might as well stop by and see elephant polo while you're in the neighborhood.
While you're in the neighborhood. I love that. Right. We should all be so lucky. Okay, what was number one for each of you?
I've always felt that Olympic athletics has been, of all the things I've done, which are quite a lot, and particularly the Olympics, to me that's a three-ring circus of amazing, athletic achievements every night. We just chose the 100-meter dash for our book as being the kind of quintessential moment of the Olympic track and field.
Sure, you have that. You also have the gymnastics final, the figure skating final for women, these moments that are just iconic. Rob, for you, what was number one on your list, your favorite?
This is a little peculiar because it's something I used to love boxing. I was a big boxing fan. And to me, over the years, there was nothing more exciting than a heavyweight championship fight. Of course, I lived through the Ali era and then the Tyson era. And these were worldwide events. They transcended sports. There was a tremendous amount of excitement packed into a very brief time. Boxing has fallen far, and I'm hoping someday there'll be another heavyweight title fight like that.
Absolutely. Some notable omissions from this book, the World Series. Although you have the Little League World Series, the College World Series, and the Caribbean World Series. Rob, why did the Major League Baseball World Series not make it in?
Obviously, we thought very carefully about everything on the list, but when there was something conspicuous like not including the World Series, we thought about a lot. And the way I explained it is really that's one of those events where it's much, much more meaningful if your team is in it.
Absolutely.
Much as I love baseball, we thought there were other better, more essential baseball experiences you could have that were reliable and as exciting as you were.
If there is going to be one thing that you two both experience before, as you say, time runs out, the clock winds down, in our sports terminology, what's the one thing that you want to see?
I always heard when I first got to SI, all these guys who had been to umpteen Olympics always said, the real beauty and joy of the Olympics is go to the obscure events, go to the smaller events and see them. And so we included in the book Olympic team handball, which I had barely heard of. It's sort of like hockey on land or something. And it was fantastic. We saw it, I guess I saw it in Atlanta. And it's a game that you can relate to, but the crowds it's dominated by Northern European countries. And There are people there, going completely insane. It's a relatable sport. You could see yourself actually doing these things. I like that. So the little stuff around the edges at the Olympics, the minor events, are just incredibly thrilling and get close to something that makes sports important to us.
I gotta say, out of the 101 things on the bucket list, I've been to 12. European team handball is one of them.
Oh, really?
It is fantastic. And I don't know why this hasn't caught on more in the United States. It's just absolutely
There's something
phenomenal.
magic about it.
There's something there.
Yeah.
Rob Blader, Steve Hoffman, thank you so much. Of course, the book, it's called The Sports Bucket List. It's 101 sites every fan has to see before the clock runs out. Keep the Olympic theme going. Of course, Mother's Day is Sunday, so when gold medalist Laurie Hernandez and her mother Wanda stopped by Sports Illustrated, we thought it would be fun if they did some role-playing with a few famous mother-daughter movie characters. Are you with me? Watch this.
Oh, okay, I got it. There was no comment. I thought like Mother Claire was the name. Okay, so these are lines from Freaky Friday.
Look, I think something's happened to us.
Honey, look, I think Honey, look, I think something's happened to us.
What are you?
It's me, Mom.
You're not my mother?
Yes, I am.
Get away.
Don't you use that tone with me.
Oh my God, you're my mother.
Okay, so these are lines from Steel Magnolia.
What are your colors, Shelby? They're blush and bash. Ooh. Her colors are pink and pink.
My colors are blush and bashful.
My colors are pink and pink.
It's her colors,
Oh, I'm sorry.
My colors are blush and bashful.
Her colors are pink and pink.
My colors are blush and bashful, Mama. Oh, Gilmore Girls. Classic.
I can't finish all this and sleep at the same time.
You have to sleep. It's what keeps you pretty.
Who cares if I'm pretty if I fail my finals?
Oh, okay, you've got this so completely backwards.
I can't finish all this and sleep at the same time.
You have to sleep. It's what keeps you pretty.
Who cares if I'm pretty if I fail my finals?
Okay, you've got this so completely backwards.
Mark Norman, congratulations on your hour-long special. Comedy Central on May 12th. It's Amy Schumer presents Mark Norman, Don't Be Yourself.
Thank you. Wow, you nailed it. I know it's a lot of words, big mouthful there, but she produced it, so we got to get her name on it, and my name's got to be on it. And it's called Don't Be Yourself, because every time I'm myself, I've gotten fired, kicked in the balls, slapped, dumped, whatever.
All right, well, we'd appreciate you being anyone but you, as we're about to do a funny segment, we hope. We went through your social media feeds, a little light stalking. I mean, nothing to call the police about.
Sure.
But as we are Sports Illustrated, one tweet really stuck out to us, and you basically said, I love how they just randomly fight in hockey games. I wish in boxing they would randomly ice skate. So we want to play a little game with you where we're going to perhaps put two sports that really don't belong together, and maybe you can tell us what this might be like and whether it's a good idea. So we have these two helmets here, Yankees and Orioles.
Yes.
We're going to turn them over. We have
Okay.
sheets of paper. We're going to put this in here.
Wow, look at you guys,
Put
so
that in here.
prepared.
I know.
It's exciting.
Props and all. So we're going to ask you to take one from the Yankee helmet and one from the Oriole helmet. We have no idea what they're going to be.
All right.
And then let's see what kind of new sports we can create.
All right, we got bowling, the fat man's revenge, and skydiving. Wow, this might be the winner.
It's a match made in heaven.
Yeah, so you got a fat guy with a beer gut and a wrist guard jumping out of an airplane. Oh, I got it. All right. There's gigantic bowling pins, like the size of like a Buick standing up on its bumper. And then you throw a fat guy out of an airplane and you try to knock down the Buick.
Beautiful.
All right, we got somewhere. I mean, the guy will clearly be dead, but hey, should have eaten right. All righty, here we are. Great to be here. MMA.
Your old job.
Yeah, exactly. I was more of an MDMA guy. And pole vaulting. Ooh. MMA and pole vaulting. Wow. So two guys. You got Conor McGregor and Silva, whatever his name is.
Yeah, Anderson Silva.
Anderson Silva. And they pole vault, go up and fight in midair. And whoever falls down first loses. I hope I'm not getting people fired here. Golf.
And wrestling.
Oh.
Now we're getting somewhere.
All right. Well, can you use the clubs?
You'd have to.
Yeah. I would like to hit a guy with a wood. That'd be funny.
This would be the most anticlimactic WWE character.
Right.
Like he comes out and it's like, it's Fred Couples.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Cool.
I got it.
Ooh.
It's two guys in sweater vests and plaid pants wrestling, and they have to put another guy in a hole. So that's how you win, by putting him in a hole in one.
I like that.
All right. Football.
Ooh. And archery.
Interesting.
Have you seen The Last Boy Scout? It wasn't so much archery as a handgun.
Yeah.
But maybe something like it's a little Hunger Games.
Yeah.
With helmets.
I like it. I like it. Yes, good call. Yeah, you got to get to the gridiron, but there's just arrows whizzing by.
May 12th. That is the night you can see Amy Schumer Presents Mark Normand. Don't Be Yourself.
Wow.
On
you are
Comedy
good.
Central.
Can I say I appreciate all the work and effort you put in? I go to some places like, who are you? Blow me. I hate you. It's the worst. But you guys are great.
A little bit of effort. A little bit of thought.
A little bit of thought. And it means a lot.
Well, we try to make all of our guests feel comfortable. We appreciate Mark Normand. We appreciate you for tuning in. Have a great weekend. Of course, we'll be back here on Monday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern with a fresh episode of SI Now. But until then, keep with SI.com for all the latest sports news. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SI Now Live. Enjoy the weekend. We'll see you on Monday.
James drove his RAV4 hybrid into Hard Knocks Canyon, where he confronted death again and again. But death would have to wait. He earned a man's gratitude and his shirt. How far will you take the all-new RAV4 hybrid? Toyota, let's go places.